In this video, I'm going to teach you why you should never sell property in your own name and how to protect yourself. All right, let's get started. So here's the deal. People sell property in their own name all the time, and they don't realize that there's a lot of risk that comes from when you sell real estate in your own name to a buyer, that buyer could come back against you at a later date and bring some claims against you because you violated some of the laws that are out there that protects buyers of real estate. And many people aren't aware of these laws and how they could impact them, because when it comes to selling real estate, what do we want to do? We want to get as much money as we can for our property. So some of the things that we could potentially violate aren't on their face something that you would think could bring liability back to you. And this happens time and time again. I've seen it with real estate investors who've contacted me and they said, hey, can you believe I'm being sued for this? How can they bring a claim against me? Well, that's why you should avoid selling property in your own name if you can. Here are the things that I have found that create liability for people when they sell real estate. Let's go over and take a look. The first one that comes up is misrepresentation. Now, what do we mean by misrepresentation? Well, a buyer of a piece of property, let's say they buy your property and now they get into the house and they realize, hey, these aren't what was represented as far as many bedrooms or square feet or color or things like that that we thought we were buying. Now, you maybe say, well, they had an opportunity to inspect it, but that's not always necessarily the case, because there could be things that you make representations about, such as a property, maybe it has access to a beach, or it has access or quick access to freeways, when in fact it does not. And they didn't think to check for that and they relied upon you. So misrepresentations is an opportunity for someone to come back and sue you. Or maybe you state that it has views, when in actuality it doesn't really have any views, or it does from the roof and you should have known better. So that's one reason which people can sue. Another one would be deceptive ads. So in deceptive ads, it kind of is similar to the misrepresentation, but here's where you can kind of cross a line. Let's say you take a picture of your property and you do some touch up with Photoshop to make it appear a little more attractive than it actually is. Or in the ad itself, you say, hey, this is a safe community, when in actuality, it's not that safe, and you know about that. Or again, it goes back to you hold the property out as it has 2.5 baths, where really it's 2.25. So these are the types of things that can trip you up. Now, I know you're probably listening to me right now thinking, well, Clint, they went out and they looked at the property, they could have figured it out on your own. But that's not always the way it is. A lot of people now are buying property online. They never go out and visit the property. So you got to be careful on how you're putting your ads together, as well as how you're marketing that property, that you could not be considered deceptive. And the reason why I think these are important aspects to consider is that in this type of environment where people are buying properties and properties may be going down in value, let's say over the next 6 to 12 months, somebody may feel like, well, I overpaid for this property. So how do I get some money back from the seller who gouged me? Let's find a way to sue them. And so they go to an attorney and they could start nitpicking the things that you put out there in order to entice someone to buy the property from you. So be careful of deceptive ads. Non-disclosure. Now, this is a pretty straightforward one, right? When it comes to the condition of your property, you want to make sure you're disclosing everything that you're aware of, and you're not trying to hide any of the nastiness or the ugliness about your property, because those are the things that if somebody finds out later on, it's definitely going to result in a lawsuit. So you got to make sure on all your disclosure forms, you're being transparent as possible on there. Now, the question then becomes, how much detail do I have to give when it comes to disclosures? Well, that really depends on your state and how they interpret that provision. There was a case a number of years ago in Idaho where somebody put snakes on their disclosure, and the buyer did not inquire any more into what snakes meant. Well, it happens to be that house was built over this cavern. So there was a cavern underneath. It was very porous rock, and when it got warm in the springtime, all these garden snakes would come up through the actual property itself into the house, because they were exiting through this area where they would go and hibernate. Now, the buyers of that property sued the sellers for failure to disclose, and the court held, well, putting snakes down on the disclosure form was sufficient. It then fell to the buyers to ask more questions. Now, that same exact case played out on the East Coast. I don't remember the name of the state where it transpired. The seller did the exact same thing, but in that state, the court held that the buyer or the seller had a more of a duty to disclose what they meant by snakes, that someone could just assume that they were snakes in the yard and that this house really didn't have a problem with snakes coming up when it got warm through the foundation, through this cavern they're in. So it really depends. It's better to over disclose on those. The next one is discrimination. Now, you may be thinking that's not a problem for me. If somebody comes up to my property, I'm not going to discriminate against them because of their color or the way they look or anything like that. But that's not what we're talking about here. Those are the easy ones, and I know we're not going to do that. It's the stuff that you would sit there and go, this is just nuts. Well, in our society today, we know that a lot of the laws and what people are held responsible for is just stupid. And so you have to play this game, because even if you could win, why do you want to get sued? So what am I talking about here? You advertise your house as something that's great for kids or not great for kids. Here's what they're going to say. You're discriminating now against people that have kids or don't have kids. That's how ridiculous our system, our legal system has become. And you have to be extremely careful there, because maybe you got a family that comes up and they buy the house, but then you got someone else who can't find property and they sue you because you were discriminated against them. And so now you're getting sued by someone you never even thought that you didn't sell them the property, and now they're coming back against you. You just showed them the property, said, yeah, this property is not great for kids because of surrounding areas, and they have kids, and now all of a sudden they figure they can't buy the property. The last one I want to bring up is environmental. So this one is a real concern with regards to your property. Most of us, we know about lead, but there's also other things such as toxic mold that can create problems for us as well. So anything that has to do with environmental contamination. When you're selling a piece of property, if you know of it, basically you want to throw that on their disclosure. You want to make sure you protect yourself and put all that burden back on the buyer to do their own inspection if they're worried about environmental contaminations in the property. I know one time when I sold a property, I disclosed the fact that I had cats in there. And the reason why I disclosed the cats and dogs is because a lot of people are allergic to that type of stuff. And so I wanted to get it out there as well so that they wouldn't move into the property and say, oh, there's an environmental contaminant in here for me individually because I'm allergic to animals. It's into the heating duct system that wasn't disclosed, and they want to come back against me and hit me for penalties and cleaning bills on the property. So environmental can be a big one as well. Now, why do I say you don't want to sell property in your own name? Because if you screw up one of these things, then you can be held liable on to that particular buyer. So that's why when we're selling real estate, you'll see in a lot of my videos, what I tell people is, put your property in a limited liability company. Use land trust. Use entities to protect yourself. So when you're selling that real estate, if a buyer, disgruntled buyer, a lot of times this is what's going to happen. If they later want to come back against you, they're coming back against the seller of the property, which was not you. So you definitely want to take a hard look at using entities on your next sale, because when things get tough for buyers and when they felt like they overpaid, that is when buyer lawsuits typically crop up and they go back against the seller to try to squeeze to get a little more of that money back that they felt they overpaid. Hey guys, if you liked the video, smash the like button. If you're not yet a subscriber, well, now's your time to subscribe, so whenever I'm releasing new content, you'll be sure to get notified. Take care.